Good morning, everyone. I'm George, Digital Consultant at Digital CDL, and I welcome you to the Organization Design course. The course consists of 7 chapters, and each chapter has several lessons. Every Friday afternoon, we will publish a new video relating to a lesson of the course. Subscribe to the channel and activate the bell to always stay updated. Good morning, everyone. I'm George, Digital Consultant at Digital CDL, and I welcome you to this first lesson of the course. How do we interpret organization, and what does it embody? The act of organizing stands as a pivotal managerial function, entailing a structured array of principles, methodologies, and instruments used to align and coordinate human, material, technological, and informational assets to fulfill a unified goal. Essentially, organization is the systematic process in which various resources, contributing through their efforts, are orchestrated based on the concepts of labor division and coordination. This transforms these resources into a structured entity or system. In this realm, organization is not only a process, but also a field of study, a body of knowledge comprising theories, principles, and models that aid managers in making decisions about resource structuring and coordination. This body of knowledge, enriched with practical experience, evolves into practical skills, indispensable for every manager. Moreover, an organization is the tangible outcome of organizing, manifesting as a societal unit with shared goals. It operates as a structured and harmonized system of activities, interacting with its external milieu. Hence, the term organization can encompass various entities like multinational corporations, mid-sized companies, public bodies, or charitable organizations. Fundamentally, an organization, as a social entity, is defined by the collective efforts of 2 or more individuals working collaboratively towards shared objectives. Therefore, smaller entities like a 2-person startup, a project team, or a department within a larger organization also qualify as organizations. They experience similar challenges and necessitate similar design logic as larger organizations, albeit at varying degrees of complexity. This inference establishes that an organization is an open system. It's a unified entity with specific goals, consisting of individual components, each playing a distinct role in achieving shared objectives. For instance, a company's aspiration to expand its market presence translates into varying goals for its different departments, such as product innovation for R&D and sales enhancement for the marketing team. An organization operates as an open system, strategically dividing and coordinating labor to meet external challenges and stakeholder demands. Organizations, thus, must continuously interact and adapt to their operational contexts to meet specific environmental conditions effectively. In essence, an organization is a conglomerate of individuals interacting within structured, more or less formalized frameworks and processes. It can be perceived abstractly as an ensemble of mechanisms governing the contributions of varied resources, or as the outcome of the intricate, planned, or spontaneous interactions among these resources. In the former viewpoint, an organization is conceived as a systematically designed entity, what we term the system perspective. The design precedes the selection and adaptation of resources, aligning them to predefined roles and functions, akin to designing a machine. Conversely, the latter viewpoint sees the organization as an amalgamation of intentional designs and the emergent behaviors of its members. This perspective considers the unique attributes of the contributing resources and strives to enhance them through suitable specialization and coordination logics, sometimes involving the actors in designing their organizational roles, referred to as the actor's perspective. Generally, the act of organizing embodies a blend of these perspectives, with either dominating based on varying factors. Thanks for watching. See you next week for Lesson 2. Good morning, everyone. I'm George, Digital Consultant at Digital CDL, and I welcome you to this second lesson of the course. Understanding organization is a multifaceted endeavor given its intricate nature. To fully grasp its operation, objectives, and inherent dynamics, it is crucial to approach it from varying analytical viewpoints. Each viewpoint sheds light on central aspects of organizational function, varying according to the participating entities and the goals steering the analytical process. These viewpoints are embedded within the extensive array of theories and studies formulated over time addressing organizational matters. Although traces of these studies hark back to ancient times, a substantial development occurred with the inception of industrial organizations. Organizational theory explores the workings of organizations and their interactions with the external environment, offering managerial insights on organizational design and management. Over time, these insights have evolved, highlighting diverse aspects concerning key variables and operational principles. Collectively, these scholarly works have enabled the acquisition of extensive, intricate knowledge regarding organizational operations. Even contemporary organizations, albeit starkly different from their predecessors, can be interpreted and understood through traditional organizational theories and key variables. So, what are these distinct viewpoints? A paramount viewpoint to be adopted in management courses is the managerial viewpoint, concentrating on the decisions made by organizational designers and managers. The goal is to attain predetermined results and objectives for which the organization was created. This viewpoint aligns with the notion that organizational design is a core management function. It prioritizes the formal and objective facets of an organization, such as task design, centralization or delegation of decision-making authority, responsibility assignment, hierarchical structures, design of organizational units, and connecting mechanisms. The recommendations derived from theories advocating this viewpoint usually possess a normative and contingent nature, suggesting optimal organizational design based on specific contextual variables to ensure maximum effectiveness. While it doesn't entirely overlook the softer elements like individual skills or behaviors, the managerial viewpoint predominantly emphasizes rational and objective criteria for formal design. Another viewpoint is the sociological one, concentrating on the individuals within organizations. It endeavors to understand how individual behaviors, motivations, and constraints can impact the overall organizational function. Instead of designing the organization, the focus here is on discerning the social dynamics to guide them towards achieving intended objectives. In this context, the organization is perceived as a product of intricate interactions among individual behaviors, and the rational, objective system loses its significance. Acknowledging the sociological perspective can significantly aid managers in proficiently designing and handling organizations by maximizing individual skills and behaviors. Lastly, a political perspective exists, delving into the organization of extensive social systems and their utilization of organizations to manage social relations, direct conflicts, and enable the ruling class to wield power. Here, the organization is viewed as a tool to create consensus, execute power, and allocate wealth. In light of the aforementioned perspectives, it's imperative for a manager to cultivate three core competencies. Firstly, analytical proficiency is crucial. Managers should possess the necessary tools and knowledge to discern the workings of organizations and the intricate interplay between various organizational and contextual variables influencing their success. Analyzing organizational facets is pivotal to strategize and oversee responsibilities, pinpointing areas necessitating enhancement or aligning the organization with objectives and context. The second vital competency is organizational design. While it might seem that the responsibility for designing an organization primarily rests with senior management or specialized departments, such as the so-called Organization Design/Development Department, in reality, managers play an integral role in shaping organizational structures, particularly on a micro level, pertaining to their immediate resources. For instance, The delegation level and autonomy granted to employees are often delineated by their direct supervisors. This design competency is a natural extension of analytical skills and revolves around formulating organizational alternatives to address identified challenges or to enhance organizational functioning and, consequently, its efficacy. Lastly, managers need to comprehend the application of organizational mechanisms to reinforce their leadership endeavors, implying the strategic utilization of organizational structures to steer, motivate, and engage their team members. In summary, a manager should not only perceive the organization analytically, but should also be adept at structuring it. They need to be a designer, leveraging organizational structures as pivotal leadership tools. Thanks for watching. See you next week for Lesson 3. Good morning, everyone. I'm George, Digital Consultant at Digital CDL, and I welcome you to this third lesson of the course. When discussing an organization, we are addressing a multifaceted amalgamation of elements and variables which, collectively, guide the conduct and activities of resources. A pertinent reference model conducive to encapsulating essential organizational variables is illustrated in the figure. This model delineates 5 categories of organizational variables: organizational capabilities, structural configuration, operational processes, human resources administration, and organizational conduct. These facets, while intensely intertwined, are conceptually disparate, occasionally representing different disciplinary realms. Organizational capabilities serve as the cornerstone for organizational structuring and are pivotal in linking the organization with the external environment. These capabilities encompass the exclusive and unparalleled blend of aptitudes, procedures, human and technological resources that empower a company to carve a niche in the marketplace. They mirror corporate strategies and are the pivotal elements that allow a company to gain a competitive edge, hence adding value. A firm, for instance, may cultivate reliability, innovation, or agility as an organizational capability, each necessitating diverse aptitudes. Reflecting on IBM historical strategic shifts illustrates the evolution of competencies from manufacturing to architectural and software design, and ultimately to service delivery capabilities. Designing an organization necessitates aligning organizational choices with fostering desired organizational capabilities. Structural organization pertains to the distribution and coordination of tasks and responsibilities amongst individuals and units within the organization, defining roles, specialization levels, and consolidation criteria. Crafting the structure necessitates outlining roles and responsibilities for every organizational segment. Reporting lines, decision-making centralization or decentralization, and power dynamics are pivotal elements. These structural decisions shape the company's organizational blueprint, typically depicted by the organizational chart. Business processes entail the synchronized design and oversight of tasks, information, and decision-making to achieve specified outcomes. For instance, responding to a customer's technical assistance request necessitates coordinated design and management of necessary activities and information to guarantee prompt and effective solutions. Organizational design focused on business processes involves aligning activities based on principles and technologies to optimize performance. Human resources management involves practices that align individual competencies, actions, and attitudes with their respective roles to contribute effectively to organizational success. It involves determining required skills and methods for their acquisition and enhancement. Recruitment, training, performance assessment, remuneration, and incentive practices are integral parts of human resources management. These practices must align with the legislative framework of the operational jurisdiction and manage industrial relations effectively. Organizational behaviors, although not a design element per se, emanate from the design, representing individual interactions and actions within the established constraints. For example, decentralized structures tend to foster autonomy and responsibility, whereas rigid procedures might hinder them. The behaviors significantly impact organizational outcomes and, while challenging to engineer objectively, must be considered in organizational understanding and description to underscore their influence on individual behaviors within structural, procedural, and human resource management choices. Discussing organizational behaviors involves examining motivational factors, team dynamics, decision-making processes, and leadership. These elements are fundamental in studying how behaviors impact organizational decisions and how leadership can mold individual and group actions within the organization. Leadership is crucial in shaping and directing behaviors to align with the organizational vision and objectives. Thanks for watching. See you next week for Lesson 4. Good morning, everyone. I'm George, Digital Consultant at Digital CDL, and I welcome you to this fourth lesson of the course. To conceptualize and structure an organization, it's not only essential to grasp the relevant domains and variables, but also to discern the principles and rationale essential for determining the most optimal arrangement of these variables. Initially, what is the intended purpose of organizational design? The central concept is organizational effectiveness, defined as the organization's capability to attain its goals sustainably over time. To evaluate organizational effectiveness, one typically refers to the company's performance, considering both external indicators, such as economic financial performance, and internal ones, such as the speed of decision-making, the capacity for organizational learning, employee satisfaction, and motivation. To attain organizational effectiveness, the organizational model needs to exhibit coherence. The principle of coherence, or alignment, foundational to organizational choices, primarily denotes the internal harmony amongst various variables and, secondly, refers to external coherence, meaning the alignment between organizational variables and the context, adhering to the principle of contingency. Let's delve deeper into these two aspects. The model's core star epitomizes internal alignment in the depicted figure. Internal alignment alludes to the imperative that an organization's diverse design choices should align, implying, for instance, structural decisions should synchronize with processes, human resource management, and the like. Hence, the configuration of one variable mandates the aligned configuration of others. Consider a firm in a volatile market undergoing ceaseless alterations, necessitating organizational agility to promptly adapt. Such an entity requires a structure with minimal hierarchical layers and elevated decision-making decentralization. What other organizational variables align with such a structure? Predominantly, roles necessitating high autonomy should be conceived. Next, emphasis should be placed on processes to ensure swift market responses. Additionally, human resource strategies must equip individuals with essential knowledge and skills for autonomous functioning and results-based incentives. Leadership styles and decision-making designs must also facilitate autonomy and individual contributions. In essence, organizational decisions must uphold elevated internal alignment and should be viewed as mutually reinforcing and interlinked, shaping an organizational model. This is paramount during organizational transformations, which are occasionally and mistakenly fixated on isolated elements, rendering the alterations ineffective due to a non-systemic perspective focusing solely on macrostructures or individual processes. External alignment, represented by the outer circle in the depicted framework, posits that organizational design should harmonize primarily with corporate strategy and subsequently with all pertinent internal and external contextual elements. This concept originates from the contingency theory of organizations, stipulating no superior organizational models in absolute terms, but endorsing models aligning with specific contexts. Hence, a model effective in a stable market may falter in a volatile one, and a small firm's organization would differ from a multinational corporation's. The contingency theory delineates relevant variables to assess alignment between organizational models and their contexts. Specifically, 4 contextual variable categories are noteworthy. Environmental factors encompass the external socio-economic, industrial, and market contexts. Technological factors pertain to utilized industrial, IT, or communication technologies. Strategic factors reflect the organization's strategic decisions, and biographical factors relate to the organization's size, age, and life cycle stage. In sum, internal and external alignments are crucial, with the former emphasizing the cohesiveness among various organizational choices, and the latter focusing on congruity with the organization's strategic intents and contextual elements, both derived from the overarching contingency theory advocating context-specific organizational models. The notion of alignment among organizational variables inherently includes the idea of organizational modification. Specifically, when a discrepancy or an incongruity arises amongst the organization's internal components or between these elements and the context, the organization loses its efficacy, necessitating a reconfiguration. When does reconfiguration typically occur within organizations? One illustrative scenario is during periods of growth. The organization initially established becomes inadequate in supporting the augmented operational scale as a company enlarges. Another instance is when an organization introduces a new product or penetrates a new market, entailing an expansion of activities and, occasionally, immersion into different contexts, necessitating a comprehensive reassessment of the prevailing organizational paradigm. A strategic shift also triggers a revaluation of organizational structure. Indications of the requisite for organizational modification are discernible through performance disruptions stemming from organizational contextual incongruities. Organizational adjustments entail intricate dynamics at both individual and organizational echelons, associated with inherent human resistances and impediments to transformation that necessitate adept understanding and administration to ascertain the triumph of the transformation process. The term change management pertains to the ensemble of managerial practices focusing on people and organizational readiness for transformation, aiding, expediting, and ensuring post-transformation organizational equanimity. Addressing change management involves several core considerations. Initially, an exploration of change obstructions. Subsequently, the procedures and practices essential for managing transformation. Thirdly, the utilization of knowledge as a pivotal change facilitator within organizations. And ultimately, the exploration of diverse transformative approaches and their distinct characteristics. The endeavor is to assimilate, implement, and harmonize changes to align the organization with its renewed objectives and contextual demands, considering human propensities and organizational dynamics. Thanks for watching. See you next week for Lesson 5. Good morning, everyone. I'm George, Digital Consultant at Digital CDL, and I welcome you to this 5th lesson of the course. The efficacy of an organization is contingent upon the harmonious integration of organizational structuring with the operative context, denoted as external alignment. It is acknowledged that there is no universally superior or efficacious organizational model. Rather, effectiveness is context-dependent. Various observed organizational structures, be it streamlined or vertical, divisional or functional, or those employing specialized or versatile, autonomous roles, often yield favorable outcomes, not due to the irrelevance of organizational choices, but due to their adaptiveness to distinct contexts. What encompasses context? The first suite of variables delineating organizational context pertains to the external milieu. This includes the socio-economic conditions, epitomizing environmental, cultural, and institutional attributes at local, national, or supranational levels. For instance, cultural nuances can mold power and authority distribution within hierarchies, influencing the establishment of horizontal or vertical structures. Likewise, Regulatory frameworks can necessitate organizational adaptations, mandating specialized units for specific tasks or segregating responsibilities to ensure accountability. A secondary facet of the external ambience is industry and market landscapes, denoting the direct interactive entities of the organization. This involves competitors, consumers, supply markets, distribution avenues, etc., collectively representing the external stakeholders of the organization. The external milieu's attributes are often succinctly examined through the lenses of uncertainty, reflecting environmental variable fluctuations and their predictability, and complexity, indicating the diversity and relevance of elements, defining it comprehensively. Considering different industrial domains as organizational contexts, the fashion industry, for instance, could be perceived as relatively uncertain, but with reduced complexity, while the aeronautical domain is intricate with moderate uncertainty levels, and the electronics sector exhibits high degrees of both elements. How do environmental uncertainty and complexity influence organizational design? Uncertainty necessitates the crafting of flexible and adaptive structures and processes at both micro and macro levels, while stable environments favor the implementation of specialized, efficient, and optimized but rigid structures. In contrast, external complexity necessitates intricate internal organizational frameworks. Each novel contextual component, be it a market, product, skill, or function, instigates the formulation of dedicated roles or units, escalating internal complexity. External complexity also prompts organizations to dissect intricate decisions into simpler, independently managed ones, allocated to autonomous units facilitated by standardized interfacing. For instance, during the conceptualization and manufacturing of intricate products, like in the aeronautical sector, companies often formulate comprehensive product architectures, rendering internal or external units autonomous in conceptualizing and fabricating individual components, leading to heightened standardization levels in complex organizations. The most formidable scenario emerges for organizations navigating through intricate and unpredictable environments, necessitating the harmonious amalgamation of organizational flexibility induced by uncertainty with the standardization demanded by complexity. The Agile organizational model endeavors to address this conundrum explicitly. Another dimension that holds immense significance for the design of an organization is the strategy the organization opts to implement. It is a facet predominantly shaped by the external environment, since the strategy essentially serves as the organization's response, articulated in goals and initiatives, to the environmental challenges it encounters. The critical role of corporate strategy in organizational design becomes evident when one comprehends that the organization is fundamentally a vehicle to realize the overarching goals of the entity by cultivating suitable organizational competencies. The influence of strategy on organizational decisions is paramount. Often, the organization, via the development of unique and irreplicable competencies, enables the attainment of substantial competitive advantages, sometimes in directions divergent from the originally envisaged paths. Multiple elements of business strategy necessitate consideration during the deliberation of organizational design. One fundamental component is the emphasis an organization places on achieving efficiency or effectiveness, i.e., whether the enterprise predominantly leans towards cost leadership strategies or differentiation strategies. These strategic dimensions profoundly influence the degree of specialization and standardization in organizational structures, impacting both the arrangement of work and the formulation of organizational units. An additional pivotal aspect of strategy that necessitates contemplation is the inclination towards exploitation or exploration. The former entails maximizing benefits from existing resources, while the latter involves probing new horizons and competitive opportunities via innovation. These contrasting orientations can have a profound impact on organizational design decisions, predominantly regarding the extent of standardization, personnel empowerment, and the anticipated organizational behaviors from the workforce. A third strategic element impacting organizational design is the predilection for an external or internal focus. This refers to whether the realization of economic financial performance in its various facets of effectiveness or efficiency takes precedence over the pursuit of developmental goals and employee satisfaction. In this scenario, design decisions, particularly at the microstructural level, may be meticulously aligned to ensure organizational well-being, human resource development, and satisfaction, considering these as instrumental for achieving optimal external performances. Thanks for watching. See you next week for Lesson 6. Good morning, everyone. I'm George, Digital Consultant at Digital CDL, and I welcome you to this 6th lesson of the course. Technological elements are pivotal constituents of the organizational milieu, possessing profound influence over organizational structuring. These refer to the myriad of technologies a corporation employs within its administrative and transformative pursuits. Technological variables are multifaceted, being partially governed by external factors such as market-available technologies and their evolutionary trajectories, while also emanating from an entity's strategic predilections. Regardless, the imprint of technologies on organizational determinations is substantial, often uniquely dictating the organizational framework. The intricate interconnection between technological innovations and organizational structures is regularly conceptualized as a co-evolutionary relationship, indicating that the conceptualization of tasks and corporate procedures incorporates both technological and organizational considerations concurrently. The Socio-Technical School, one of the pioneering institutions in organizational theory, underscored the criticality of amalgamating these variables during corporate functional design. It advocated that the socio-technical system, an ensemble of the social system, individuals and organizations, and the technical system, technologies and processes, is the focal point of organizational design or modifications. Optimal design methodologies, hence, necessitate a harmonious consideration of technological and organizational possibilities alongside the inherent constraints or requisites emanating from processes and organizational members. Illustratively, the current influx of digital advancements necessitates an evaluative approach that contemplates not merely the technological benefits, but also the requisite organizational, procedural, and skills modifications essential for deriving genuine advantages. Conversely, technological selections are occasionally a deliberate alignment with predetermined organizational models. Such is evident in reorganizations premised on product-centric business units necessitating collaborative technologies for remote engagements, pivotal for actualizing the intended organizational transformation. Delving deeper into technological implications on organizational decisions reveals 3 pivotal technological categories: industrial technologies for goods production, service technologies for service delivery, and informational and communication, or digital technologies, predominantly supporting administrative functions. These technologies exhibit extensive variability based on product and service diversification and volumes, dictating the automation and standardization levels within processes. For instance, mass production technologies correspond with specialized, standardized organizational structures, reminiscent of mechanical system metaphors, whereas diverse production processes necessitate organic structures, typified by professional autonomous roles with flexible coordination mechanisms, catering to diverse customer needs. Digital technologies, as previously stated, induce a plethora of organizational impacts. These range from the establishment of specialized units managing technological integrations and their corporate repercussions, to alterations in control and coordination mechanisms, enabled by enhanced information interconnectivity across various processes and hierarchical strata, extending to the restructuring of roles and competencies due to the technological augmentation or substitution of human endeavors. Biographical factors, namely the size, age, and developmental stage of an organization, constitute a pivotal category of variables influencing its design decisions. The scalar expansion of companies unequivocally exerts substantial impact on organizational frameworks. Typically, smaller enterprises exhibit simplistic, non-standardized structures marked by minimal roles and functions, informal organization, and loosely defined, predominantly unformalized, work specialization criteria among individuals and organizational units. Increment in size necessitates enhanced work specialization, the establishment of novel organizational units, and ensuing standardization and formalization of activities and organizational operations. Often, increments in organizational size correlate with its age, particularly when growth is consistent post-establishment. It's pivotal to accentuate that an organization's life cycle stage can significantly sway design choices, independent of its size. Different stages of organizational maturity necessitate different priorities, induce diverse contextual conditions, social dynamics, and prevailing motivational factors within the organizations. Discussing organizational life cycles implies acknowledgement of their inception, growth, maturation, and potential evolution, either persisting in time, undergoing decline, or experiencing revitalization through pivotal strategic and organizational modifications. During these transitional stages, organizations often undergo modifications in their models, experiencing evolutions and revolutions triggered by crises. The crux is that optimal organizational choices for a specific maturity stage may hinder further growth and evolution, necessitating transitions to more congruent models for advanced stages. For instance, a predominantly informal model, like that of a startup with limited vertical specialization and predominant reliance on mutual adjustments, may impede growth due to the absence of robust leadership and consequential lack of strategic managerial direction. The establishment of a managerial role can lead to more structured divisions of labor and responsibility, until further growth necessitates enhanced autonomy within various organizational units and individuals. To conclude, the trajectory of an organization can be narrated as a cyclical progression of evolutions and crises, evolving from simplistic to more intricate structures, a conceptualization resonated by the Grainer model illustrated in the figure. The transformation and adaptation in organizational models are pivotal to accommodate the varying demands and challenges presented at different stages of the organizational life cycle. Thanks for watching. See you next week for Lesson 7. Good morning, everyone. I'm George, Digital Consultant at Digital CDL, and I welcome you to this 7th and final lesson of Chapter 1 of the course. This segment delves into the concept of organizational culture, which, in this context, does not allude to the degree of enlightenment, but rather refers to a confluence of explicit and implicit norms and shared values that act as the behavioral compass for individuals within an organization, being honed and reinforced over time. Predominantly, theories centered around organizational culture perceive an organization as a system, with culture serving as an integral component that binds its members. With time, certain behaviors and attitudes that are deemed successful permeate through and evolve into foundational business practices. Indeed, varying firms may exhibit starkly contrasting norms, values, and attitudes, even within identical sectors. A noteworthy instance of such divergence is the recurrent disparities observed between Western and Japanese manufacturing entities during the 1970s. The former were anchored in rules, procedures, individual specialization, and hierarchical structures to ensure operational efficiency, stability, and consequent customer satisfaction through quality products. Conversely, the latter embraced semi-autonomous production units, collective incentives, and grassroots enhancement initiatives aimed at fostering a committed workforce and, subsequently, customer satisfaction through quality offerings. Such instances illustrate divergent corporate philosophies, distinct behavioral paradigms and reference points, converging towards a unified objective: customer satisfaction through quality product offerings. Intriguingly, divergent cultural nuances can manifest within singular entities when contrasting business functions are scrutinized. A representative example is the disparate languages spoken by the commercial and production functions within a single entity, stemming from the creation of organizational subcultures anchored in functional rationales. Organizational culture is a pivotal facet within entities for myriad reasons. It operates as a significant catalyst, analogous to organizational structure and corporate strategy, in the seamless attainment of organizational objectives. Additionally, it is a critical element to contemplate during transformational phases, as it can both streamline change management processes and simultaneously act as the principal hurdle to change due to inherent resistances. We shall now explore two principal models that shed light on organizational culture and its repercussions at the managerial echelon. These models offer insights into the nuanced interplays of cultural elements and their managerial implications within organizational settings. The model presented by Egbert Schoen stands as our initial point of consideration. Schoen is a renowned figure in this domain, being the first to articulate a definition of organizational culture. He portrays organizational culture as an accrual that progressively amasses over time. Schoen posits that organizational culture constitutes a cohesive amalgamation of foundational assumptions conceived, unearthed, or cultivated through learning by a specific group, aimed at addressing its external adaptation and internal amalgamation challenges. These assumptions, being adequately efficacious, are deemed valid and are thus imparted to newcomers as the appropriate manner to perceive, contemplate, and feel in response to such challenges. Schoen delineates that organizational culture evolves and reveals itself through three strata: artifacts, espoused values, and fundamental assumptions. Artifacts, being the most conspicuous stratum, comprise manifestations and components that are readily discernible but challenging to comprehend, including aspects like dress codes, office layouts, business customs, and the formality or informality of interactions. Observing this cultural stratum provides insights into the organization's actions and its members, albeit without uncovering the rationale behind these traits. The subsequent stratum encompasses espoused values, representing the values that organizational members express and acknowledge as guiding principles for certain behaviors, with company mission and ethical codes being pertinent examples in this category. The third and most implicit stratum is constituted by fundamental assumptions, forming the bedrock of organizational culture. Such assumptions are organizational values so ingrained that they are perceived as self-evident by the organization's members, subtly steering behaviors while remaining unobservable. A conviction in the effectiveness of a hierarchical approach, for instance, can serve as a fundamental assumption, an implicit value influencing more overt strata. Schoen's definition and his modeling of the three levels elucidate the inherent challenges in altering organizational culture, primarily due to the entrenched and subliminal nature of fundamental assumptions, highlighting why culture frequently becomes a barrier to transformation. The challenge primarily emanates from the difficulty in modifying such deeply ingrained and subconsciously held basic assumptions. Geert Hofstede's model stands as the second in our examination. His significant insights into organizational culture illuminate the connection between the culture within an organization and the national culture where it resides. Reflecting upon the initial comparison between Western and Japanese manufacturing entities, it's evident that broader cultural orientations can indeed mold the facets of organizational culture. Hofstede conceptualizes culture as the collective mental programming that differentiates one group or category of people from another. Per Hofstede's conception, culture is evidenced through symbols, heroes, rituals, values, and practices. He posits that variances in national cultures are predominantly rooted in differing values, whereas disparities in organizational cultures lie principally in practices. This implies that managerial practices are inextricably intertwined with local culture. An effective approach in one nation may not translate to success in another. Aligning management practices with the underlying cultural values is crucial for the effective orchestration of resources. Moreover, Hofstede meticulously explored the disparities among various national cultures, highlighting 5 principal dimensions that demarcate them. These include power distance, indicating the acceptance of unequal power distribution, individualism/collectivism, denoting the extent of one's alignment with a group, masculinity/femininity, with masculine societies valuing assertiveness and decisiveness, and feminine ones prioritizing well-being and tranquility, uncertainty avoidance, and temporal orientation, whether long-term or short-term. Examining power distance reveals higher levels in Latin and Asian countries and lower levels in Northern European nations. Individualism is prevalent in developed Western nations, while collectivism dominates in less developed and Asian countries. High masculinity is noted in Japan, Germany, Austria, Switzerland, and is low in Nordic countries like Holland and Sweden. Regarding uncertainty avoidance, higher levels are seen in Latin nations, Japan, and German-speaking countries, with lower levels in English-speaking and Nordic countries and in Chinese culture. Examples of countries demonstrating high aversion to uncertainty include Russia and Japan, in contrast to the United States. Lastly, Asian nations exhibit a more long-term orientation, in contrast to the shorter-term orientation typical of Northern European and North American countries. In conclusion, the elucidations provided by Shane and Hofstede are vital, enabling management to intricately comprehend and formulate organizational practices that are coherent and conducive with both internal and external environments, assuring effective alignment with contextual cultural norms and values. Thanks for watching. See you next week for Lesson 1 of Chapter 2. Good morning everyone, I'm George, Digital Consultant at Digital CDL, and I welcome you to this first lesson of the second chapter of the course. How can one gauge the efficiency of an organization and determine the steps necessary to sustain it? These crucial questions are ones every enterprise and manager must grapple with. While the challenge is intricate, we certainly aren't the pioneers in pondering it. Organizational science has been a long-standing field within economics and management. Over the ages, thinkers have endeavored to discern the factors behind successes or shortcomings, offering models to aid decision-makers. When viewed in this light, organizational theory isn't merely a theoretical construct, but a culmination of centuries of effort and real-world experience. As aptly put by Kurt Lewin, a good theory is the most practical thing there is. The genesis of organizational theories often stems from foundational beliefs about the essence of organizations within society and their interplay with individuals. One such foundational paradigm hails from the classics, with Adam Smith, the progenitor of economic theories, at its helm. While Smith is lauded for his insights into market dynamics, his magnum opus, The Wealth of Nations, primarily delves into organizational studies. Right from the outset, in the chapter on division of labor, he posits that a nation's true wealth, and hence its power, doesn't lie in raw material control, but in proficient labor division and its subsequent coordination. By analyzing the pin factory, Smith not only interprets the Industrial Revolution, but also foreshadows concepts later embraced by many. The real value of industrial labor organization springs from heightened productivity through job specialization and mechanization. However, this is feasible only with meticulous analysis and standardization of both the production process and the product. Henry Fayol, a French mining engineer and manager, is another luminary in classical organizational theories. Drawing from his experiences, he formulated one of the earliest comprehensive theories of management and organization. He identified 6 core business functions. 1. Technical. 2. Commercial. 3. Financial. 4. Security. 5. Accounting. 6. Managerial. Furthermore, Fail outlined 5 central managerial duties. 1. Planning. 2. Structuring. 3. Directing. 4. Synchronizing. 5. Overseeing. In executing these responsibilities, Fail believed leaders should adhere to 14 guiding principles of management. These principles range from work division and authority to equity and fostering a sense of belonging. Collectively, they've significantly influenced contemporary organizational structures. For instance, the prevalent org chart essentially embodies Fail's principle of unity of command, emphasizing a singular reporting line for every individual. Max Weber, a German economist and philosopher, is yet another stalwart in classical organizational thinking. Contrasting Marx's materialistic perspective, Weber emphasized the moral and religious underpinnings of Western capitalism. He is credited with coherently defining the bureaucracy concept, an ideal organizational framework based on 5 tenets. 1. Defined roles, clear demarcation of responsibilities for each position. 2. Established hierarchy, explicitly stated chain of command. 3. Clear rules, ensuring consistency and stability in actions. 4. Impartiality, maintaining neutrality in all interactions. 5. Dedicated professionalism, full-time commitment with performance-based progression. Weber saw the bureaucratic structure as the pinnacle of organizational models, asserting that its formalization simultaneously safeguards the organization, its employees, and its consumers or citizens. However, the term bureaucracy has, over the years, acquired a negative connotation, underscoring the inflexibility that blind adherence to the model can bring. Drawing parallels among these visionaries, one discerns a common thread, a belief in an ideal organizational model that should be aspired to, realized by methodically crafting an organization that remains largely impervious to individual nuances and interpersonal dynamics. Thanks for watching. See you next week for Lesson 2. Good morning, everyone. I'm George, Digital Consultant at Digital CDL, and I welcome you to this second lesson of the second chapter of the course. While Europe was experiencing the emergence of Fail and Weber's theories, the US saw another engineer, Frederick Taylor, introducing the concept of scientific management. This would soon become foundational to organizational and industrial structure. Excited by the possibilities presented by the novel mechanical technologies, Taylor aligned himself with Smith, interpreting the Second Industrial Revolution. He suggested the application of scientific and experimental methods used in machine design to management and organization. After years as a laborer, Taylor, now a consultant in organization and management, formulated his theories. He observed tasks and then experimented with new practices, always emphasizing work specialization, new tool implementation, and meticulous performance measurement. Taylor's scientific management is based on 4 principles. Substitute traditional work methods, which rely on experience and common sense, with those founded on a systematic and scientific task analysis. Choose and hone workers based on their unique skills, assigning them to roles that best fit their abilities. But give each worker comprehensive instructions and supervision to enhance their productivity. The segment tasks not only horizontally but also vertically, distinguishing management's planning and supervisory duties from the tasks performed by the workers. Applying these principles systematically, along with the smart use of technologies, can significantly boost productivity, benefiting both companies and their employees. A case in point is Taylor's stint at the Bethlehem Steel Corporation. By applying scientific work organization principles and innovative tools to shoveling, he nearly tripled productivity. A nearby steel mill, noticing the efficiency of these workers, offered them $4.9/ton, up from the $3.2 2/ton Bethlehem paid. Despite the higher offer, all the workers returned to their previous jobs within 6 weeks. The competitors' conventional team structure didn't allow them to earn as much as they did at Bethlehem individually. For Taylor, work organization transformed into an empirical science, a systematic managerial consultancy activity, and a wellspring of innovation. The ideas that later inspired Henry Ford to establish the first assembly line can be attributed to Taylor. This not only revolutionized the auto industry, but also the global economy. Ford once worked as an engineer at the Thomas Edison Electric Company, which supported his endeavors with the internal combustion car prototype he had designed at home. In 1902, he established the Ford Motor Company. By 1908, while embracing scientific management principles, he introduced the first Ford Model T. This car was groundbreaking not just for its straightforward design and standardization, but more so for its highly industrialized production process, where the assembly line was incorporated. This production method was inspired by what Ford had observed in Detroit's slaughterhouses. The Model T, or Lizzie, as it was affectionately termed in the US, was manufactured for 19 years, with 17 million units sold, redefining car perception. In 1908, over 10,000 Ford Model Ts were sold at $825 each. By 1912, the price had dropped to $575, making it the first time a car's price was less than its maker's average yearly salary. In 1914, Ford produced more than 260,000 Model Ts with 13,000 workers. In contrast, the rest of the industry collectively made 287,000 cars with 66,000 workers. Between 1908 and 1916, Ford managed to cut prices by 58%. Concurrently, he introduced a daily wage of $5, which was double the industry's standard rate. For the first time, factory workers could afford to buy a car, transitioning it from luxury good to a mass-market product accessible to most families in the US and other industrialized nations. At the core of this shift was the profound capability of technology and work organization to amplify productivity. In 1910, before the assembly line, 2,773 workers produced 18,664 cars, translating to 6.73 cars per worker. By 1914, after introducing the assembly line, 12,880 workers made 248,307 cars, which equals 19.28 cars per worker. Production times for the flywheel magnet decreased from 20 minutes, using traditional methods, to 13 minutes with the push chain, and finally to 5 minutes with the mechanized chain. With the assembly line's introduction, the Ford T's production time reduced from 12 hours and 8 minutes to 2 hours and 35 minutes, eventually dropping to 1 hour and 33 minutes at the Highland Park facility. Fordism, driven by a robust societal vision, truly revolutionized production and work organization methods. This revolution, which fully realized the ideas of classic organizational thinkers and Taylor's scientific management, marked the definitive shift into the industrial age. This approach is anchored in the firm belief that a resilient organization should be viewed as a mechanism, unaffected by individual changes. The principles of specialization from Smith, hierarchy from Fayol, and formalization from Weber collectively form the bedrock of a precise and objective organizational perspective, often termed the mechanistic model of organization. Thanks for watching. See you next week for Lesson 3. Good morning, everyone. I'm George, Digital Consultant at Digital CDL, and I welcome you to this third lesson of the second chapter of the course. In the US, during the same period when Taylor introduced scientific management, Elton Mayo laid the groundwork for an alternative organizational theory, the human relations model. This approach would later stand in contrast, even ideologically, to Taylorism and traditional organizational models. Mayo, originally an Australian psychologist and sociologist but a faculty member at Harvard, began his initial research in the US by examining employee turnover at a textile mill in Philadelphia. He observed that fostering a strong group dynamic with autonomy and responsibility led to higher productivity and reduced turnover rates. Subsequently, Mayo was invited to the Hawthorne plant by the Western Electric Company to study productivity. The findings from this research birthed the human relations theory, which challenges Taylorist principles. Specifically, Mayo's experiments emphasized the significant influence of emotional and human factors on productivity, factors largely overlooked in scientific management. He demonstrated that the enhanced performance of the workers in his study was less about changes in tangible work conditions, e.g., lighting, but more about feeling valued and observed by researchers, leading to increased focus and motivation. This observation is now known as the Hawthorne effect. Building on Mayo's work, Douglas McGregor, a researcher at MIT in Boston, explored management behaviors and introduced the renowned Theory X and Theory Y, two seemingly contrasting models that help elucidate managerial attitudes and leadership methods. Managers aligned with Theory X believe that individuals inherently dislike work and, unless supervised and coerced, will act in self-interest with minimal effort. Such individuals also prefer directives from superiors to avoid responsibility. Conversely, under Theory Y, managers hold the view that individuals don't inherently resent work. They see it as natural and potentially fulfilling, akin to the physical and mental exertion it demands. People, without external control, but driven by an intrinsic desire for quality work, can self-discipline to achieve outcomes. Their dedication is tied to the appreciation and rewards they receive, especially increased self-worth and opportunities for self-growth at work. Given the right environment, individuals learn responsibility and exhibit innovation and creativity in problem-solving. While Theory X and Theory Y seem diametrically opposed, both can be valid as they act as self-fulfilling prophecies. McGregor's central argument is that managerial preconceptions and anticipations shape leadership styles and organizational decisions, which subsequently profoundly influence worker behavior. Specifically, individuals under restrictive control frameworks, devoid of empowerment and discretion, tend to adopt opportunistic behaviors and exhibit a lack of commitment and responsibility, traits they would otherwise develop under a more encouraging organizational structure and managerial approach. In essence, it's the erroneous biases and attitudes of management, not inherent human traits, that underutilize the cognitive, emotional, and ethical capacities of workers. Another cornerstone of the human relations school is the exploration of needs and motivation to comprehend how to effectively inspire employees. Abraham Maslow introduced the concept of a needs hierarchy, often termed Maslow's pyramid. This hierarchy ranges from basic physiological and safety needs to more advanced ones like belonging, esteem, and self-actualization. Recognizing higher-tier needs only becomes possible after fulfilling basic ones, and consistently met needs lose their motivational power. Without a comprehensive grasp of individual needs, determining the right motivational triggers becomes challenging. Another pivotal understanding of motivation stems from Frederick Herzberg's distinction between hygiene and motivating factors. He pointed out that many company actions, believed to motivate employees, merely address hygiene aspects, like fair treatment or a safe work ambience. Meeting these needs might lead to quick habituation and doesn't necessarily motivate, though their absence can significantly demotivate. Genuine motivation arises from intrinsic motivators like professional pride, skill mastery, and the significance of one's contributions, factors innate to the job. The fulfillment of these intrinsic factors doesn't just satiate, it establishes a positive feedback loop, continually driving motivation. Thanks for watching. See you next week for Lesson 3. Good morning, everyone. I'm George, Digital Consultant at Digital CDL, and I welcome you to this fourth lesson of the second chapter of the course. Starting in the 1960s, as human relations theories gained traction in the US, a distinct intellectual movement emerged in Northern Europe, especially within the UK and Scandinavia. This movement came to be recognized as the socio-technical approach. The Tavistock Institute of Human Relations, and later the National Institute for Working Life in Sweden, were its major contributors. At its core, this perspective views organizations as open social systems that continually engage with their surroundings. Organizational performance is shaped by individual and group behaviors, which are in turn influenced by an interplay of technical and social factors within the organizational context. Organizations, from this viewpoint, aren't entities that can be strictly designed. Instead, while technology doesn't dictate organizational dynamics, it can enhance them when synergized with other factors that shape individual actions and group interactions. Grounded in socio-technical insights, innovative organizational and technological models were conceived. Notably, Volvo in the 60s reconsidered the traditional Fordist production approach, opting for modular assembly spearheaded by autonomous multidisciplinary teams. Central to the socio-technical approach is the emphasis on the social group as an essential unit for organizational study and a key planning variable. This perspective aligns with the beliefs of human relations theorists. Organizations shouldn't be seen as rigidly designable mechanisms, but as dynamic social systems. In these systems, human and social elements collaborate with technological aspects to influence individual and group behaviors. The juxtaposition of socio-technical and human relations theories against classic Taylorist views resulted in a pronounced ideological divide. This divide was bridged only recently with the advent of the so-called contingency theory. This theory posits that there isn't a singular best model. Instead, as proponents argue, it depends. Everything is contingent upon the specific context in which an organization operates. It's essential to tailor organizational configurations to align with both internal coherence and the specific characteristics of the external environment. Such alignments should be derived from empirical evaluations of organizational actions and outcomes, rather than from rigid ideological standpoints. One of the notable contingent factors is technology. Joan Woodward, through her study of 100 British manufacturing firms, underscored that organizational decisions often correlated with the technical intricacy and mechanization level of the production process. She found that mass production scenarios favored Fordist organizational structures with pronounced specialization and formalization. In contrast, single or small batch production settings were better suited for flexible and informal organizational designs. Researchers from Aston emphasized that organizational decisions should be tailored based on company size. Other thinkers, like Lawrence, Lorsch, and later Hofstede, shed light on cultural and environmental impacts. Chandler, on the other hand, showcased how business strategies influence organizational decisions. Mintzberg offered a comprehensive classification of contingent variables, listing age and development phase, size, technologies use, characteristics, member needs and aspirations, regulations and guidelines, stability, intricacy, diversity and adversarial nature of the external environment. And he added, prevailing organizational trends. Organizational decisions should be made considering a combination of these factors, ensuring both internal coherence and alignment with the specific context. Key organizational dimensions to be considered include task specialization, both horizontally and vertically, training and indoctrination, behavior formalization, organizational unit clustering, size of organizational units, mechanisms of connection, systems for planning and control, horizontal delegation, vertical delegation. To achieve organizational effectiveness, two conditions are vital: internal consistency and external consistency. Out of all viable organizational configurations, the one that empirically aligns best with an organization's specific situation should be chosen. The overarching sentiment in all contingency theories is the absence of a single best way. Instead, based on key contingent variables, a few coherent models should be identified, with the most fitting one selected based on the prevailing circumstances. The emergence of contingency theories positioned organizational study as a genuine empirical discipline. Nonetheless, the lasting influences of both classical and human relations schools persist, shaping our understanding and interpretation of organizations, sometimes leading to unproductive ideological debates. Thanks for watching. See you next week for Lesson 1 of Chapter 3.